Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women become confident and thrive after toxic relationships. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if you weren't afraid you would fail? You weren't afraid of other people criticizing you? You weren't afraid that you wouldn't end up liking the change? What would you do if you weren't afraid? I read this post today where this woman moved to Florida, and people asked her, "Why did you move from New York to Florida? You love New York." She said, I thought, what would I do if I wasn't afraid?" And she said, if I wasn't afraid, I would live on the beach. And if I wasn't afraid, I would jet ski every weekend. And she had this other list of things that she would love to do in Florida. And so she just took her family and they moved to Florida. I read another post where this woman said, "Stop saying I can never do that." She just gotten through running this really long marathon, and people were like, "Whoa, I can never do that." And she said, "Stop saying that." She says, when you look at the whole big thing, it's overwhelming. When you take it step by step, then you can do whatever it is you want to do. And I thought those are good things, and they have to do with our topic, which is how not to play small in a big world. Let me share my screen with you. Yeah, so last week we started off part one, and now we're moving on to part two. So last week we started off with definitions. Remember, we talked about how playing small is basically, or how we're going to define it, is when your actions or behaviors stem from fear, from insecurity, from wanting approval for others, doing what you should do, what you ought to do, what you feel like you have to do, when you feel like you have no options. You're not doing necessarily what you want to do, but you're doing what you think everyone else thinks you should do, or that you don't have the capabilities of doing anything better. So it comes from low self-esteem, low self-worth. And then the definition that we had for living big was that when you live big, you're thinking about, what do I want? What are my unique set of talents and abilities and experiences? How can I use those to make the world a better place, and how to do what is my passion? What makes me fulfilled? What makes me satisfied? And at the same time, make the world around me better. So those are the definitions that we have for living big and living small. And then today we're going to talk about what keeps us playing small and how to stop doing that. And we're going to talk about a vision for you. So when we first talk about living, we're going to talk about limiting beliefs, fear, inner critic or gremlin, which we talked about that for a couple of weeks already, in the dream of tomorrow, which we talked about that 2 weeks ago, the idea that we're going to do things tomorrow when things get better. So those two we've already talked about, but we're going to talk about limiting beliefs and fear today. So limiting beliefs, what are limiting beliefs? We have many of them, being women, and these just come from, who knows? They're just ideas that we have come up with. Either people, or maybe our families gave them to us. They came from our culture or religion. Maybe they came from media. Maybe they came from the people that we hang out with, people at our job. There's so many different limiting beliefs. So maybe it's that, like I grew up always letting the guys win the games because guys don't like smart girls. Or I thought when I was thinking about trying to get a job, well, you can't make more money than your husband. Maybe a limiting belief would be, a woman's never going to make as much money as a man, so don't even try. There are many, many things like this. I talked to a woman that said that in her Asian culture, women are not encouraged to put themselves out, to stand out from the crowd, to be in leadership positions. They're encouraged to just kind of stay back, do the stuff on the back end, and be humble and in humility. And I don't believe that those are can't do them both at the same time. But anyway, they're not encouraged to step out and take the risks of what we're talking about in playing big. Now, these limiting beliefs can be overcome fairly easily once you realize that you've got this belief. So as you start trying to think of what the thoughts that come in your head that tell you why you can't do this, look at those and think, where did that thought come from? How true is it? Is it really true that no man is going to like a smart woman? Is it really true that a woman can never make as much money as a man? And once we realize that these are just thoughts that we've learned through the years, we can change them. Assumptions are a little more powerful. An assumption comes around because I did this before, so I believe that it's going to happen again. I tried this, it failed. If I try it again now, I'm going to fail again. I interviewed 3 times for that kind of job. If I interview one more time for that kind of job, I'm going to not get it again. So it's a little more powerful because we have a little bit of evidence in the past this happened. But you're not the same person that you are today that you were back then. Who knows what kind of things have changed? And this one can also be questioned by challenging yourself and saying, how true is it that just because it happened before, it has to happen now? So that's the way to challenge that one. Interpretations. Now, in interpretation, we just make up a story. We decide that we're mind readers. And what happens is that we look around, we decide what we think this situation means. So, for example, maybe you walk down the hall at work, there's a group of people that are talking and laughing, and as you get close, you quiet down and stop laughing. And you think, oh, they're talking about me. You just decide that. Well, maybe they weren't talking about you at all. Maybe they were telling a joke that they knew you would not appreciate, or maybe they were gossiping or talking in a way that they would not be happy for anyone to hear them, and they're embarrassed about themselves. It has nothing to do with you. It's all about them. Or maybe that interview for that job again, you interviewed, you didn't get it, and so you decide, I didn't get it because I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm a person of color, I'm a woman, not a man, I this, I that, and you make up all these reasons for why you didn't get the job. None of them may be true. You don't have enough information to make that judgment call. And so maybe that job is just not the right one for you. So when you have an interpretation, you have to stop back and think, okay, what evidence do I actually have for this? What are some other ways of looking at this that are possibly true? And if possible, then maybe you do some research to find out what the truth is if you can. If not, you might as well give it a positive spin as a negative spin. Since you don't know the reason anyway, you might as well be thinking positively. Fear is a very powerful thing that can keep us from playing big, and it keeps us living small in our little comfort zone. There are different kinds of fears. We have fear of failure, fear of success, and fear that comes from trauma. I've been talking to y'all for all kinds of ages about this. Childhood trauma, adult trauma, and then the trauma that we've all experienced for the pandemic. All of these lend us to feeling anxious and fearful. And we've talked about that before, so we're not going to go into detail about that today. If you want to learn more about trauma, you can watch my videos on my YouTube channel. There's a link in the show notes, and you can I have a whole lot of videos on trauma. So today we're going to talk mainly about fear of failure and fear of success. But first, let's talk about fear itself. There are 2 different words for fear in the Hebrew language, and I love this. This first one is called Pachad. So Pachad is overreactive. It's worrying about things. You're imagining the worst case scenario. When your child is 30 minutes late, you're worried that they're dead in the ditch somewhere. You're fearful that people at work are going to find out that you don't really know as much as you're pretending that you know. And it's just very worrisome, very afraid. It can be irrational. It's definitely overreactive. And this kind of fear is going to keep you from playing big. It's going to keep you wanting to stay safe and secure in your little comfort zone. It's going to keep you from being willing to take risks. It's going to be keep you from being willing to put yourself out there because you're worried about what's going to happen. This next fear is very interesting. It's called Yirah. This fear has 3 different meanings to it. One is the feeling that we get when we're coming into a space that's larger than we've ever been in before, or when we're starting to experience more energy than we've had before. It's also what we feel in the presence of the divine. So this kind of fear has a sense of awe about it. It's exciting. It's fear and excitement. It's when you're expanding into something that you've not known before. It's definitely a little fearful. It's got a lot of energy to it, and this kind of fear, you're gonna feel this anytime you start to make changes in your life, so you can start playing big in the life you really want. So when you're feeling fearful about things, determine which fear it is, and if it's the Pachad, you want to try to move out of that. And if it's Yirah, lean into it, enjoy it, and experience it. Here's an example that can help you decide which fear you're feeling. Now, if you're like me and you love roller coasters, and you're in the car and you're going up or going down and it's scary and oh, I'm so scared, but I'm loving this because I really enjoy this. This is Yirah. I'm afraid and I'm excited at the same time. Now, if you are afraid of heights and you're only riding that roller coaster because your friend talked you into it, you are feeling Pachad. You're feeling like you're going to die. You're panicking. You are not enjoying it at all. So I think that's a good way to discern the differences in Pachad and Yirah. Now we have fear of failure. Fear of failure comes about depending upon your mindset. Now, if you have a performance mindset, which can also be called a fixed mindset, if you've heard that before, this is where your motivation is basically from the outside in. What are other people going to think? How is this going to look? When you have a performance mentality, if you don't perform perfectly, then you fail. Black or white. There's no in between. And so this makes a lot of fear of, you don't want to take risks, because why would you risk this if you mess it up a little bit, then it's a failure. There's a lot of competition in this mentality. You're wanting to do better than the other people. You're wanting to look better than them, and you're feeling like I have to be perfect, and your self-worth and your value is tied up in that performance, how well you do that. But if you have a mastery mindset, this is also called a growth mindset. This is where you think as life is just constantly learning. We're always learning and growing. We're not going to judge an experience as bad or good like we would in the performance mindset. We just see everything that happens as a way to learn. So if I try this and I fail, it's okay. I'm just going to look and see, what did I do wrong? What can I do better next time? Or if I try it and I do it a little bit good or a little bit bad, it's never an either or thing. There's room for growth. There's room for imperfection. And when I have a mastery mindset, I'm not afraid of putting myself out there or risking, because it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, I can learn from it. Now, fear of success is a very interesting fear. First, I want to show you something. Let me stop sharing for just a minute so you can see this better. All right. Sorry about that. I had it for that. Can you see this? This is, oh shoot, I should not have my background. There we go. This is a beautiful shiny ball, and it's inside a cage. This, in the school where I was certified as a life coach, we had to make a 3D representation of our gremlin, our inner critic. Remember when we talked about that a few weeks ago? And this is the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough or thin enough or whatever. And my gremlin said, don't shine too brightly. Have any of you ever had those thoughts? Don't shine too much. Don't stand out from the crowd. You have to blend in. If you're too out there, people are going to criticize you. You're not going to fit in, and people are going to not want you around them. Maybe you're going to make people feel bad if you're smarter than them. If you're shining too brightly, you're just not going to be a part of the group, and so you must not do this. Another way that fear of success can be seen is that maybe we're afraid. Hang on, let me share again. We're afraid of so what happens if I succeed? What will that look like? What kind of expectations are people going to have on me now? What kind of responsibilities am I going to have? Am I going to like the way my life changes if I'm doing something big and it works. Fear of failure and fear of success are both things that we have to work out of in order to play big. And you might need someone to help you. Obviously, if you think a coach would help you, I would love to talk with you to see whether we could have a coaching relationship. There is a link in the show notes. Click that and you can schedule a free coaching session. So there's also fear that comes from trauma. And like I said, I've talked about this a lot, so we're not going to go into depth here. But when you live in that critical negative state that produces trauma from abusive childhood, abusive adulthood, or the pandemic that we've been living in, you end up in this constant state of tension, of over aware. You're watching for the next the shoe to drop, and even if things are going well, you're afraid it's not going to keep going well. When you have that mentality, you're not going to step out. You're not going to be bold and brave and live the big life. And that's because you're full of those hormones, remember. And if you want to learn more about this, like I said, there's notes there's a link in the show notes. You can watch my videos on my YouTube channel and learn all you want to learn about trauma. Or we can coach and I'll tell you more about it too. Now, the inner critic is also a major thing. All the things we talked to before, if they keep on and on and on in your life, they end up as that voice in your head that says, why would you think of doing that? Of course, you could never do that. Don't even try, yada, yada, yada. Again, we've talked about that the last few weeks, and I gave you some ways to lose that inner critic. The dream of tomorrow, remember that one? It's the idea that right now everything's too crazy, too busy, can't even think about it now, but in a couple months things are going to calm down, things are going to be better, I'll have time to do it, I'll have brain bandwidth, tomorrow is when I'll get this done, tomorrow is when I'll be happy, and tomorrow never comes. All these things keep us from living big. Now, what I would like for you to do is think of what you think living big would look for you, or one thing that maybe would help you move toward living big. I would like for you to think about one thing in your life that you would like to change, something small. And as you think about that and you vision what would this look like for you, I'm going to give you some last tips on how to live big. So first of all, when you set goals, make these be goals that you desire. These are goals that are like gifts to yourself. They're not shoulds. Don't should on yourself. Make your goals be something that is enjoyable for you, that gives you passion. Get support from others. These could be your friends. These could be your co-workers, people to support you and cheer you on. This could be a coach if you need to kind of work through things and you need some help breaking things down into smaller pieces, or helping you to figure out and move past whatever limiting beliefs or fears or problems with the inner critic that you're having. It's good to have some help in sorting all that out. And see yourself as being part of something bigger than yourself. So this could be using your faith, depending on your faith, helping you to move forward with that, seeing yourself as part of making the world a better place, the community. Maybe you're part of love or part of education or part of the body of Christ, however you want to see that, but just something bigger than yourself helps you be motivated to keep moving on and not be afraid. Stop comparing yourself to others. This is a biggie. When you compare your living big to someone else's, it doesn't work. Your living big is different than your living big, and it's different than my living big. Whatever living big means for us is uniquely ours. It has to do with our own talents, our abilities, our experiences, which have put us in the perfect spot to do whatever it is that living big means for us. When we compare to other people and we think they're living bigger than we are, it just keeps us in our comfort zone because it makes us afraid. Stop comparing and make tiny changes, just like at the beginning about the marathon. Our brains freak out when we try to do something big all at once. We might do it for a day or two or a week or two or even a month or two, but eventually we just can't sustain it. when we try to make big changes all at once. So make tiny habit changes day after day after day. And after a while, they will become part of a different lifestyle for you. There are two books that are great: Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, or Atomic Habits by James Clear. And then have compassion for yourself. You remember when we talked about trauma, when we have a panic attack or we get triggered, if we're getting onto ourselves like, oh, I can't believe I'm still having this problem. I can't believe this is still bothering me. And so we get triggered and then we get irritated with ourselves. So the brain just keeps on pouring out those hormones. If we can have some compassion for ourselves, the brain will stop. It'll stop pushing out the hormones, and then we still have to metabolize them. But then we can get our frontal cortex, our thinking brain back online by having compassion, and then we can keep moving on to making whatever changes. Maybe we need to make some changes, but we will not make those changes by being critical to ourselves. We can only make those as we're having compassion. Now I want to end by reading this point to you. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see me a little better. And hang on, let me get my notes because I did not have this memorized. Okay. Behind every successful woman is a past. Most likely a difficult past she had to walk through and trudge through and claw through inch by inch and ugly day by ugly day. A past that knocked her down but didn't keep her down. A past that broke her down but also allowed her to break through. A past that caused her tears but didn't tear her apart. Behind every successful woman is a list of failures. Probably a fairly long list of moments she fell flat on her face and had to face the music that she had come up short. Behind every successful woman is a voice, a series of voices from her past, from her present, and from her own mind telling her she's not the one and she probably shouldn't even bother. She'll never make it. She'll never be enough. Behind every successful woman are eyes watching her every move to see if she makes it to the top or if she hits every rock as she falls and flails and flops on her way down to the dirt at the very bottom. Eyes set on copying her and criticizing her and bringing her down to their level. Behind every successful woman is the woman she used to be, the woman who was scared and worried, the woman who cared what everyone thought and tried over and over to please the masses. The one who cried alone in the dark, the one who wanted to bury her head in the sand. Behind every successful woman is a fire and a dream and a determination and passion and a will and the desire to see this thing through until the very end. Giving up may cross her mind, but she will not let it take up residence in her heart. Behind every successful woman is a sisterhood of other women who support her and love her and push her to be her absolute best, but stick by her even when she's at her absolute worst. A sisterhood of other women who could choose to compete, but choose to take the higher, better road of collaboration instead. A sisterhood of other women who don't just fix her crown, but also bend down, pick it up, and dust it off when it's fallen off. A sisterhood of other women who refuse to get jealous, who refuse to compare, who refuse to belittle or go low, who refuse to gossip or leave out or hurt just to watch her crumble under the pressure. A sisterhood of women who tell the truth when it's hard, when it's easy, when it's uncomfortable, when a lie would be the simpler road to travel. A sisterhood of women who pick her up and put her back on her feet when she's gone off course. A village of women who have the courage to encourage her. A village of women who have the strength to strengthen her. A sisterhood of other women who have her back and her front and her side and her soul and her spirit and her heart and her best interests in mind always. Here's to the past, that made you who you are. Here's to the list of failures that taught you to do it better. Here's to the voices you learned to quiet. Here's to the eyes you learned to shrug off. Here's to the woman you are becoming. Here's to the fire that won't let you quit. Here's to the sisterhood who builds you up in big and small ways every single day. Here's to the God who tells the stars where to shine and still loves you even more. Here's to you, successful woman. Keep burning bright. The world needs who you are, what you have, and what you're doing to make this place a little bit brighter. That was by Amy Weatherly. She gave me permission to use that. And one more book that was really good that I read was Living Big by Tara Moeller. If you want that specifically, contact me and I will give it to you. Meanwhile, if, like I said, if you're interested in a coaching, you're even thinking about the possibility of a coaching relationship, schedule a free session. We can talk and I can let you see how powerful coaching is.